Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday of week 3 of the third week of the summer writing program, 51 years. We have a wild night for you.
Look what a dinner break will do. That's like effing resurrection.
We had to sit through 3 talks and classes.
Yeah.
And they come back like this?
I know.
Nobody's tired? What?
Dinner break. Dinner break. Cease fire, cease fire. Don't you know the kids are wired? Thurston, we love you, we miss you, but those are the best fucking syllables in English. Cease fire, cease fire. Don't you know the kids are wired? Cease fire, cease fire. Don't you know the kids are wired? Hey, y'all never been to church before? Ooh. Thanks. All right. Technical difficulty. 11 years and this thing has never betrayed me thus. Thank you, Chris. We do, as Anne said, have an amazing reading for you this evening. The run of show will be Swanee Astrid, Angel Dominguez, a brief intermission, then Valerie Schoen, then Lydia Lunch. Nico will introduce Lydia, Brian will introduce Valerie, I'll introduce Angel, and now to introduce Swanee, Mari.
A few years ago, I went to see Gloria Steinem read from her autobiography at the Unity Church. At the end of the reading, there was a Q&A. A woman shuffled very slowly up to the microphone, and once she got there, she seemed to completely break down in asking Gloria Steinem a question. She said, "I just want to thank you for my whole life, for all the things you've done, for your wisdom. And I see you in my dreams. I dream about you." We're like, this is going off the rails. And she just started sobbing. And Gloria Steinem looked at her and said, "Do you know what I dream about? I dream about you. Isn't that what we're here for? To give birth to each other in some way." Swanee Astrid, that's you. That's you. You create the conditions, the actual nuts and bolts conditions for us to experience authentic transformation during these 3 weeks and throughout the year. We're here to experience the poet you are tonight, but I had to take just a second to honor this other capacity that you have because we wouldn't be here without you. So let's just real quick speed round do a multiple choice to find out exactly how you create these conditions, with what tools. So this is a multiple choice, thank you. This is A, a bokken. B, a sword for transforming aggression by cutting through obstacles. C, a tool that Swanee skillfully uses to create conditions for authentic transformation. Or D, all of the above. There you go. This is A, a ballpoint pen. B, a liminal truth agent. C, a tool that Swanee skillfully uses to create the conditions for authentic transformation. Or D, all of the above? Yes, these are A, keys, the means by which we open every door on the Arapahoe campus, including the shed, and Dharma gates, which rumor has it are endless. C, a tool that Swanee skillfully uses to create conditions for authentic transformation. Or D, all of the above? Last one, and this is a tool that Swanee skillfully uses You guys, that's just a rubber chicken. Swanee Astrid is a poet, editor, publisher, and educator from Sacramento, California, with degrees in literature and writing from the University of Iowa, as well as an MFA from Naropa University. She's been an editor for Earthwords, Vestal Review, Bombay Gin Literary Journal. She served on the boards for the Sacramento Poetry Center, Collective Aporia, of which she's a founding member, a performance collaborator who has written, performed, directed, and produced for such productions as The Beat Drags On, and for such venues as Jose Montoya's Poetry Unplugged, Mutiny Information Cafe, Fox Theater, Lighthouse Writers Workshop, and more. Swanee's areas of research include astroanthropology, Nordic animism, language permutation, world building, ecofeminism, and contemporary mythopoetic narrative frameworks. In 2021, Swanee gave a talk on Valkyrie poetics for Heathen Women United Conference as an artistic response to environmental leadership through the metaphor of the Valkyrie as embodiment of feminine warriorhood necessary for the battle against our climate cataclysm. At JKS, she makes a staggering number of trains run on time, and will say things like this in the same 10 seconds. Did you fill out your FAFSA form? And I can't answer that question about mythopoesis until I hear from my dungeon master. I don't think this flexible genius informs her whip-smart haptic poetics at all, do you? She told me, I don't want people to be afraid to up-level. Let's not be. Did you really think I was going to end this introduction without bringing us back to the rubber chicken? We live in ridiculous times. And we need someone who meets them. We need a warrior poet who is unafraid to meet the ridiculous, unafraid to make space for us to transform despite it, unafraid to transform aggression by cutting through obstacles, unafraid to write directly into the space of liminal truth, a warrior poet who is unafraid of the locked door. In other words, we need a person who ain't chicken. We all know who I'm talking about. Let's give it up for Swanee Astrid.
Can I borrow the rubber chicken? All right. I had to work it into my repertoire. Thank you all for being at summer writing program tonight. Week 3, vision and vocality. I'm in really good company, and I'm very humbled to be in service to you all. I want to start my reading tonight, sort of doing a bit of a recap of JKS poems over the most recent years. I've sort of adapted this party trick, if you will, at our program readings of taking a line from each poet and constructing a memento of that evening, borrowing from each person's words. So I'll read a handful of those. I'm going to start with the poem in the most recent issue of Bombay Gin Literary Journal. There are like 20 copies left because we've given almost all 300 of them away this summer in the past 3 weeks. So I just wanted to shout that out. That's pretty amazing. I will not repeat my last performance, heckling from the back rows, torn between the silence of the shuffling deck of births and well-worn wishes that will be summoned at first birth against life's chorus. I learned what a hungry ghost was. I've never once worn shoes on this stage. Now we understand why the breath does not always fall into step. My thumb caused a total eclipse. The void in the window looks out the window, seeking invisible, settle into this skin. In front of this day, coming, everything lies behind. The middle way, no road at all. One can assume line breaks insinuate birth, We are in a time of war. Nous sommes en temps de guerre. About suffering, we were always wrong. It drips of my ancestors. What don't you feel? A perfect abstract narrative just hanging with dream. I've seen what you cheer for. A constant return to writing. From flat iron to flat iron. A list of names. A harmonic balance. To craft an ending, I would say, I love you, or nothing at all. This next poem is the collective poem from the Women of Naropa reading in 2024. We host that when Ann Waldman is back in town teaching her practicum in April. And that reading, we honored Lynn Haginian, who had just recently passed. So the title of this piece is Lynn Hiage. Funny and strange things catch my eye. Scraps of origin are blunt since we crawled out of the sea, splitting the flesh, revealing the pit, forging empathy, all the senses, sucked my own marrow out dull. It started slowly, hardly noticeable, thirsty for everything. It's always time for the sipping self. The bites on our necks are real, sewing midnight to morning, to make the night forever. We aren't wasting our time if tied to train tracks, fitfully inspired. There is no more beyond revolt, horn of plenty, at dawn with mares to ride into the blinding light. This is the most recent Women of Naropa poem, so it's new shit. It does not have a title yet. I use the metaphor of tulips, sit in the dirt and wonder at these bones, whorls to be placed on your flesh, unable to sleep because of the memory of body parts, something in the barren blood, unbridled by limits of law and imagination, ghost of that host, reweaving imagination in life. I return my bones to you, remember me, the untethered roots of our youth. You're the violence, and I'm the sex, the faint silhouette of a bear, the silhouette of a man. I expect the stars to fade, disintegration of gesture dissolving in the sea of illusion, bulbs exhumed after the last petal fallen. So those were the sort of collective poems, so I owe a shout out and gratitude to all of our wonderful students, from which such great lines can be stolen. This is an ode to the linden tree over by the Arapaho House, which in the pre-flood times was the home of the Kerouac School. And now it's the constant companion of the smoking table. Your blossoms herald summer from green promises that start as fine as the point of this pen, then grow, ripening anticipation into a butter yellow. Then suddenly, you open your skirt of petals, and your sweet scent fills the air, a perfume I am in love with. Find my lips collecting pollen with gentle kisses, courting your flowers among the bees, honeyed and bumbling, drunk on sensation, the hum of copulation stirring the air, mixing with wind, falling on my head with rays of the sun, crowning the golden afternoon with delight. If you haven't taken the time yet to get to know the linden flower, it's really such a treat. I have to encourage you to do it. This poem I wrote in 2022, and I was sitting on the curb in front of Reed Bye's house, And I just couldn't believe that we were doing summer writing program in person. And that we were finally delivering our sanctuary and apocalypse theme and program. And I had just seen a rescheduled performance of Zoe Keating that just really set me up right for the whole endeavor. And during that, she played a new piece that just really spoke to me, which she had titled Soft Apocalypse. So that inspired this poem. And so also shout out to Leah and your book, Soft Apocalypse. There's a theme, a common theme there. I mean, if apocalypses could just happen softly, that would be nice. Leave me to contemplate in the garden of the sublime. Lavender, currant, flax, yarrow, at the foot of the drive, more golden in the setting sun, soft in the evening light. Sitting round the curb, the moon with her own curve vivid behind the glissandering clouds, the nature of winds blowing, bliss to the tempo of a soft apocalypse, darling. Everyone is bleeding tonight, the charge of resistance circuiting tears, and friends who appear in the form of angels cutting deals with heaven. What is one more summer compared to this now? What is one more dinner? What is one more night to fall in love with poets again, with poetry again? It's like hearing that old familiar melody for the first time and weeping. This next poem is slightly older. I wrote it in the pandemic. I was taking an online workshop with Janneke Stuckey and Pat Grossman, and they were like, find a book for bibliomancy. And for me, that book is always Iovis Anne. So the line that I landed on, I think, was, you put the hex on, comma, after Anne Waldman. She who gardens hums her spells for the earth, transplanting desire into a rooted margin, red-throated in the call for flower, bedfellows in the shock, moving back in time, back to the pollinators, back to the wind and water and winged things, provocateurs of reproduction. Of the birds and the bees we ask why one cannot without the other, the density of question and answer written on the window, every pain, every defiance, bodies en masse marching to the grave as soon as we are born, soil black with human nutrient, overflowing with sunflowers on the rise, considerable to hinder, roses in the coil, obstinate growth. What is the latinate for these seeds? What kingdom? What phylum? Even an emperor knows something of the divine feminine. It's in the armies marching on their stomachs. It's in the rise and fall of nations. It's in the weeping of swords, the bleating of guns. What grammar muse do you sing in this chaos stratagem? What is it to write the law as a poem meant to be interpreted, holding weight of life and liberty? What is a hex but one person holding another to the law? All right. Then the next two poems that I'll finish the evening with are from more of my Nordic animist-inspired writing. This piece, Glacial Prismatic, was published by Patrick Bethy-Bridge last summer in issue 7 of Visible Binaries. It's called Glacial Prismatic. Listen. When sung, when time is halted, polar memories sing of continents born and subsumed, nirvana buried under pressure, a thumbprint of quartz, density, committed to states of being, ice become liquid, become vapor, expansive and unknown, impossibly undefined, awake on an ocean in the air, transubstantiation from a precipitous cloud, immortalized in the highest strata to whispers in transitional depths. The motif of climate, groaning in tempo with the breakdown of ancestor, of giants, elders in the myth before saga, a quality that sings the multiverse, words that can make sense and confusion, power without cruelty, life without atrocity, merely the rush of an aqueous symphony, swallowed whole by a chasm of joy, thawing a hot heart in mourning, animism of grief, sweat and breath in nature's reflection, nothing but blue beauty of ourselves as all of nature, feels and listens, melting as if in the heart of a flame or a star, the molten core surrounding, ever-present, thrumming in pure existence, touching the edges of the world, circumferencing hope like a ray of light that time illuminates on the threshold of wisdom, while frozen epochs collapse, a future destined to come crashing, heavy with the weight of itself, glistening density. It's like a palate cleanser. Okay, I wanted a little levity to bring this one to you, sort of reset the mind. This poem I'm going to read is a continuation of the poem last year that kind of got cut off because of a printing error. It's called Volva Spell. A vulva in, it's a Nordic witch. It's not a cognate, but it's really a great, phonetic relationship. And it's derived from the Volusbau, from the Poetic Edda. And in this poem, I'm encountering Ragnarok and kind of expanding that moment with our contemporary moment. A witch's wisdom is unfolding, a vision told in mead. She, golden draught of memory, standing mid the flames, living in all times, speaking through the void, a song of never ending, a song of many cycles. An axe age, a sword age, shields be sundered, a wind age, a wolf age, ere the world be plundered. What more? Now is the time I shall tell the tale of weird unraveling, a fomenting lamentation, must upon the brew, as bees collecting pollen, as pine consumed by fire, beings in all realms will pay their blood with iron. All that chaos reigns shall birth the world anew. An axe age, a sword age, shields be sundered, a wind age, a wolf age, ere the world be plundered. What more? Remember, O warrior, ask yourself the question, wherefore? Both ash and elm are blighted, an infestation, beetles transported over oceans, boring beneath the bark, strangling phloem, fungal carriers, emerald nightmares, declining, brittle dryness, 100 million dead upon the score. Do you understand yet? What more? Here comes the pattern beating. A drum forever calls to war, silence never repeating. Weeping olive trees, fruit of struggle and resilience. The ravages of millennia, uprooted elders, shedding missiles. Division more dangerous than truth, of peace more dangerous than fraction. When human kinship has been violated, the passing of an age in the witness of a tree, to hubris and redemption, explosions and poison, unlivable devastation, where once a culture grew. Do you understand yet? What more? Orchards mark boundaries between conflicts launched in summer offensives. Military buffer zones, military earthworks, soil transformed by illegal occupation, stripped like freedom, the last fruit signifying abundance and loss, an artificial famine of expropriated harvest. The only apricot within reach is the sun, golden sweet, the promise of a future. Do you understand yet? What more? What is an age not told in tree rings, the afterlife of softwood, to be pulped, made into paper, then a book, potential for fictitious history, every piece of culture labeled propaganda, confusing the vulnerable, burned by invaders, Antipathy needs no reason. What is executed is always destroyed. It is the difference between mortar and martyr, explosion and resolution in the hands of mortals. Do you understand yet? What more? I call upon the cypress of Abarku, ancient beyond recall, millennial rings, historical reservoir, tree of life, as tall as a lighthouse, as wide as a blue whale heart, twisted, spiraling apex, Zoroastrian crown, everlasting, like a green waterfall from the sky, port of the desert sea, pilgrimage following Silk Road, belief from reality, immortality in mythic time, symbolism in rituals with the dead. For whom didst thou create me? Treasure of the world harassed. Who will repel violence, dispel the forces of evil? Evergreen symbol of freedom and resistance in every corner of the culture. Do you understand yet? What more? Epoch of many ages, a grass age, an ice age, age of mammals, a drought age, a famine age, a stone age, a smith age, axe of ages, sword of ages, shields be sundered, a wind age, a wolf age, age of gunpowder, the industrial age of textiles, age of missiles, the silicon age, the whole age of ages, in each age entirely new. See the fate that waits the world? Do you understand yet? What more? Thank you.
Ángel Dominguez is a Latine poet of Yucatec Maya descent, born in Hollywood and raised in Van Nuys, California by their immigrant family. Oh, America. They now live amongst the redwoods of Bonnie Doon, California. They're the author of several books of poetry and prose, including Desgraciado, and most recently, the 10th anniversary edition of their debut work, Black Lavender Milk. They were the 2023 Poet in Residence, the Poetry Center at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and the 2021 Maza Writer in Residence for the San Francisco State University. Currently, they serve as managing editor for Lilac Press. Their work appears widely online and in print in places like Bomb Magazine, the Berkeley Poetry Review, Fence, Prolet Magazine, Open Space, a beautiful publication of the San Francisco Modern Museum of Art, and elsewhere. As we learned, or learned again, or poetry, is only ever trying to remember that Desgraciado, the collected letters, began here at Summer Writing Program, in Sycamore Hall, in Fareed Matuk and Susan Branti's workshop. Fareed and Susan, who were just here last week. So truly, Angel's return to Summer Writing Program is a beautiful substantiation or transubstantiation of the continuation of devotion and art practice we're calling the living thread. Specifically, the Desgraciado began with a prompt to write a love letter to your worst enemy. There's so much swirling in the ethos and poetics of that prompt. First and foremost, the interdependent fact and categories of love and the enemy. Each one of us will likely have a theology or philosophy to resolve or collide those two polarities. For sure, it seems that for Angel, the notion of radical intimacy was immediately implicated in that prompt, or rather the intuition of the poet that the love letter to your worst enemy was summoned or recognized. And as Anne rallied us earlier today, poets, to your etymological dictionaries, wherein one learns that intimacy comes from the verb to make an impression, to leave a mark, a trace, which is sometimes what the poems of Desgraciado attest. Darling, did you really think your empire could end me? And sometimes the poems themselves leave the mark. And here I'm reminded of a touchstone scene of intimacy among enemies. In the Mike Nichols adaptation of Angels in America, in which Belize, the night nurse, confronts and comforts Roy Cohn. The two talk of death and heaven, which Belize describes as something like the end of the world, the end of history. He says it's a big party, a festival, big dance palaces full of music and lights and racial impurity and gender confusion. A heaven where all the deities are Creole, mulatto, brown as the mouths of rivers. In this apocalypse, a world, a new form of social afterlife, in which race, taste, and history are finally overcome. And there is some shared genealogy in that vision as well as what we get in the collected letters. Like many apocalypses, and Desgraciado is one, a revelation, Belize's comes with judgment. He tells Roy, you ain't there in heaven, meaning a return to the antagonism after something like the carrying telling of the lullaby to the stoned and dying Roy. And as Belize tells him, you ain't there, Jeffrey Wright lightly taps Al Pacino's haunch. And in that gesture, we see something like affirming their shared experience as gay men, or at least men familiar, intimate with sex among men, but also dismissal of the dying and diminished antagonist. A love letter or gesture to your worst enemy, the site of poetry. Please join me in welcoming Angel back to Summer Writing Program, this site of poetry.
Hello, my beautiful archive. How I've missed you all. The last time I gave a reading in this space, it was a performance art piece in which I had several of my then friends drag me around the audience on the floor as I read what would become Desgraciado. And I've decided that I'm going to read works that I wrote here, that began here, because in so many ways I began here. Read. I could fucking cry. Okay, sorry, that threw me off. It is the honor of my life to return to the spine of the continent as a faculty for week 3, and I hope to do right by all of you outriders. And I am so grateful to be in community, to share in this radical intimacy. Y'all don't understand just how rare and necessary this is until you're away from it for a decade. It's all happening right now. So I'm gonna read y'all some fucking poems. This was written right over there, in pack, I shit you not. And it is the first page of the book. Do you want to remember your dreams? Pour a glass of water at night, drink half the glass before bed, and remember to drink the other half upon waking. The moment our deep star touches your skin and kindles you to flame, you are a magus. You are a form of water. You are a lot of language. You are blood and salt. Pour the glass of water, from the sunset, from the faucet, from your dream breath. Put a palmful of water to your lips and try to remember why we sleep, why we dream, that we may pass through a portal without shape and awaken elsewhere, here, older, and here now. Go to bed before you read this book. Carry it with you and don't read it. You're sure to remember it if you follow this. Gather your sleep, strung together with water, cupped by tongue sound. Say it with me now. How will I know when I arrive? Sigh a breath to your left and make sure you've kept a pocket full of stones and sand, and the sound of ocean water weighs gravity when marked upon the body, doubling seasons. Stretch time to fit what you remember, and meet me in the orchard or the airport. This was also written here. I'll stop saying that. Somnambulism's 1. Despierta, sonámbulo, y cuéntame, coyote, tu shish, un cenote. Despierta, sonámbulo, y cuéntame, coyote, la huerta, cómo empezó tu shish, un cenote. Sheesh, you were a watchmaker with a jewelry store in downtown LA. A dealer in time, you tuned quartzite, 32,768 hertz. You whistled for me to follow through the subway. Un bolsa de aguacates, limones y tres naranjas kept us quiet while waiting to arrive, and I've kept every departure. They occupy a small wooden box below blue jars, and I want you to know how I've roamed in search of stones, in search of other portals, in hopes of finding you somewhere within a dream. I'm always trying to blur reality, nodding off into the person next to me, running into me, running into me, running into 4 a.m. instability, breaking into an airport, running for the orchard. I remember things that are not happening, say, continuing from where we left off, soft syllables made of mud, water, witching up a spell for something like transport, something like continent, something like crystal memory. I press a tip of quartz to my tongue and run west up mountain, far from ocean. I still smell salt when there's a hint of blood. I bit my tongue, caught managing a mongrel timeline not fit for linearity. Somnambulisms last a flock of years. Here, I find myself failing to write an orchard, attempting instead a continent within a dim body, not yet formed and tired from running. I only want to arrive. If you want to follow me to the orchard, combine equal parts citrine and kunzite. Follow the moldavite that followed you home. Follow the dead wherever they may wander. Follow the notebook until it becomes water. Combine equal parts exhaustion and atrophy. A cenote blossoms where you failed to bury it. Night grows into the orchard, sleep spreads throughout the oranges, and by morning, its memory casts shadows. Sheesh, before I left, I felt an after approaching. In search of that before, body I fragment, catching curves of descent in the orchard. I watch the sky in my sleep. It breaks off glowing fruit, falling into plastic bags for safekeeping. I keep sleeping to forget, to keep it safe. I balance 3 blue jars on a shelf in the room where I rent. 1, a mixture of charcoal and raw kyanite. 2, I broke the jar before I could recall what it held. Part of my body, maybe. A dim start, some memory shard ground up into an azurite moon. 3, quartzite variants, rose petals. I drink from these cups and I go running for it. The sun has not come up, but maybe you know this. What never happened, waiting in slow light, pressurized by our oxygen, dim faces recycle sleep, or are they empty seats? The flight returns to me in bits and pieces. As it's happening, I might be running 5,831 feet. Most commercial aircrafts fly at an altitude of 30,000 feet. This notebook is a runway or an entrance, but that doesn't mean anything yet. So tell me about the moment you start to dream. To feel the body, feel. A hypersensitive lucidity, horizontal, then suddenly vertical. The body confronts intersecting realities with muscle spasm. Time regenerates and becomes suspended along with sensory detail. For example, there is no sound. The doubling is dizzying, facing both red sheet and dream, accidental glimpse outside body. It's raining. Determine a point of entry. Between the ribs, there is a pile of blood, become calcium. Dismantle the fossil. Return the body to a state of arrival. The sun is not yet. The rain approaches. The body fidgets. It shakes. The sensation is that of accumulation. The blood of the orchard was once measured with clocks and notebooks until finally the dream dispersed and I found myself smashing my writing, naked in my bed, bending mirrors into memories, howling like a hurt animal on the floor of my notebooks. I keep trying to remember where we wake up, when that was. How will I know when I arrive? Will you meet me in the orchard? In the house of your body, you light a candle and leave the windows and doors open. A single mirror is placed upon the earth, sinking beyond sight. Everything remains this far away. I still remember falling asleep, how we felt before plucking aguacates from the sky, forming vestibules from night. I didn't mean to write anything down, so tell me about the orchard. A flock of mirrors were forced from their first home. Hollywood needed parking lots, not poor immigrant dwelling. There was once a family preceding that asphalt smear. They moved to a valley of train tracks, warehouse walls. Each month brought European glass from car crash on the corner. There was a tract of land where they began to dream again. The orchard began and continues to grow when tired mirrors lay sleeping. Sometimes we'd wake up with rose petals in our coffee. Sometimes we'd wake up asleep in the orchard, night covering our mouths. I get to taste the special water. Tastes like acid. No, I'm kidding. So I'd like to also read from Desgraciado, which was also started here. Look how many fucking books you can start at SWP. What the fuck? What the actual fuck? Like, think about that for a minute. Because I did not expect this to be a book, y'all. And I am going to read you the first Desgraciado letter that was created here in Sycamore Hall. We kept it in the book unedited because I needed it. Diego, you dead man, I write to you. It's been centuries, I'm sure, since someone called out to you, but now I do. Diego de Landa, the year is 2014, and the calendar has been reset. Your story buried beneath your auto de fe, burning our bodies down. We've no one to rescue that sound, but what am I saying? I speak English into robots and write to you in anything but Spanish, lengua catalana. I wanted you to know that I have touched your soil, and throughout Madrid and Barcelona, I carved large red letters in churches and chapels, and I painted Mayan conquest. On subways and buses, I wrote, "Fuck Spain," on every flag I could find. I started small fires in museums and stopped short of smashing mirrors and windows because I can't erase you now. There's too much to wipe out on data disks and clouds. Fire couldn't find you now. Perhaps you'll drown. I'll pull you through cenotes on my gringo tongue, rinse your lungs clean with Xibalba water. What would you say to me then? And could your heart be pure? I'd have to taste test the ash of your organs. I'd have to fiddle with your bones to be certain I could trust you to go on dying, unacquitted by the light of time. I want your trial to continue. Maybe I want to save you. Love, A. And now I'm gonna read you some shit I didn't write here. Dear Diego, what does it mean to be beautiful? What does it mean to speak beautifully? I used to understand this as poetry, as prayer, and then my body stopped praying. Or rather, my body began rejecting this tongue. The tongue I write to you in, the tongue my mother calls our native tongue, but Spanish did not blossom on the peninsula. Spanish was transmitted with violence. My blood recalls a trauma. Anxiety spreads to my pupils. Speaking this tongue, I know sounds beautiful to some, and yet to me it sounds like a question. It sounds like a form of skin. It still sounds foreign, just as all language sounds foreign, except for the language of empathy, which we all hold some form of access to. I open my mouth and it rains in California for 3 days straight. The air becomes a wavering cloud. The sound washes out the color until all is spectral and aglow. I touch the soil of my memory, which is sand and could once become water. But now I'm all mud. I keep finding earth in my mouth, my teeth, these accidental crystals or rotting fossils. I keep finding this want for blossom, this need for bloom, this want for something more than beautiful but healing. I want to song, I want to make us soft again, to bring the violence of living to a stillness, a song to cradle the traumas of our ancestries, to sleep in hopes of dreaming, a means of raising the sun from its absence. I am a mess of slow flowers. I want the ghosts to show themselves so that we might hold them, become a nest in which they might rest. I'm so sick of all this pain. My body is a constant struggle. My body is a stolen artifact. My body is a gulf of dreaming. My body is the result of globalism. My body fated to suffer diaspora, displacement, dissociative, depressive disorders. My tongue is a refuge. My tongue a foreign vessel. My tongue is a weapon. My tongue is an organ. My tongue is my song. I forgot I was supposed to stop writing to you, Diego, but it's raining today, and the gray sky reminded me of time and how we're all bound to one another across this weaving of reality and light. And when you set the Maya language on fire, I can't help but think you had these evil aims of erasure on your mind. It was July 12th, 1562, when you decided Mani Yucatan was the proper fireplace for your auto de fe. It was then you stopped my ability to speak beautifully, and while I hear the song in the night of my heart, I don't know the words. My body is quiet. Stripped of its mother tongue, my body is compliant. My body searches for its organs in the rubble of its oppressor. My body sifts through the language, patching shards together until there is an echo of that song. The mother's song, the first song still sleeping in our blood. The blood of those who remain, the blood of those who remember. And remember, there was once a song that sounded nothing like these trees. Remember, there was a song that sounded something like home. And that is beautiful. And that is still resting in our throats. I cut my hands in the body of my oppressor. I cut my tongue in search of dust, that dead skin that recalls a life before this language. And when I bleed, I can see a portal or a mirror forming in the wound. I peer deeply into it until there is a vision. And after the fire, there is this hole in the earth, and it reaches to 1562, and it's full of ink. And I'm digging, and I'm digging, and I'm still 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 digging. I'm still digging. Love, Angel. So I come to you tonight adorned in the soft armor of a poet. This is my grandfather's cardigan. This is the last shirt my grandfather bought me. And so my grandfather, Sheesh, for whom black lavender milk was created, is here with us tonight. Dear Diego, I keep writing these broken pyramids, cracked open and vertical, separated by language, sometimes a single word or letter. An idea can be enough to levitate a whole civilization, capable of crumbling the golden cow of capital and state in a single sentence. The leaves are falling earlier this year, still summer, and yet the sighing continues. Sometimes it's termites taking down the trees. Sometimes it's just time. I never think of trees as having any kind of set death, and every tree I see, I assume, will outlast me. Every tree I see is older than I'll ever be. That's the way I treat most trees, aware of the scale at which they live their lives, their language of earth and atmosphere. I wonder about the myths that trees make, what culture might mean to the images of eyes that emerge from the bark of the birch. I wonder about the language between things and if the language acts as matter acts, in a kind of iridescent repulsion of electrons, the absences simulating touch between things. And sometimes I think about the touch between us, D. Sometimes I think about the touch between us, reader and writer, correspondent and corresponded, the speed at which our electrons rush to reach each other, an electricity that emits itself beyond corporeal time, the time of these ancient trees, Brahmins taking whole centuries to form a single thought. The turn of the clock, another season gone. Following the listening limbs, how fingers fidget across the robot to unlock a set of learned language. I wander through trace, casting out flares of poetry and memory, these glowing things that mean things to me. I'm more interested in sentiment and sincerity than I am in meaning or winning, and what's it mean to feel, and I mean really fucking feel your feelings. How is it that you are alive? Have you survived to where you are now? How have you grown into another organism, and do you still use your roots? Have you learned to become interplanetary? Have you bathed in the wash of the sea? Have you seen the spine of the continent? Have you made something for someone? Are you still learning to be free? There are so many molecules in the sky right now. Reach out and touch another now. Learn to listen to the threads of time, how they shimmer, vibrate beyond our corporeal selves, how larger bodies of time absorb energy, how energy is finite, must be directed towards sky of our own making. Sometimes the surrounding trees, they tell me things. Sometimes we wake up early to visit the ocean, and it reminds me that I am nothing. This life is a bubble on a wave, on a shore I will never fully comprehend. And still, we learn to read the wind, learn to thread the centuries through a song, carried away by what comes next. So, I've got maybe one last Desgraciado letter that I'd like to read to y'all, and then I'd like to read a new poem with you. Dear Diego, sometimes writing to you feels like drinking gasoline from the pump. The sound of liquefied time dripping in the moonlight, 100,000 fossils pouring out of my mouth and into my organs. I get so thirsty writing to you, Diego. I find myself craving freeway rain, thumb on the dotted line home. Sometimes I pine for the guardrail to give way. The call of the void, l'appel du vide. Do you still feel this? Did you ever? The fleeting thought of oblivion? I always arrive at the cusp of destruction with you, Diego. I never know just how far to go, if such a thing exists. This notion that if I destroyed you through erasure, if I could rewrite a history, well, am I anything other than what you are? If I set fire to your robes, if I robbed the Iberians of their histories, if I replaced every colonizer and colony with new words, I don't think there is enough language to do what you thought you did by burning everything away. I don't think humans have a real grasp on scale. Everything in our lives is inevitably short-term in relation to the life of the planet that we exist on. You really thought you could just save us. You really just thought you could just rob, torture, rape, and murder us. You thought you could burn the bodies of our ancestors. You thought you could tie our wrists behind our backs, hoisted up by the language of your God to paint boiling pig's fat on bare flesh to what? Get the demons out? Get to the truth? You would use these inquisitional tactics to demand information that did not exist. Do you know how many recanted their confessions after their blood had coagulated and covered their wounds? Do you know how far some had to travel just to find idols in ruins to appease your fantasies of heresy and demonology? Your imagination was more evil than anything my ancestors admitted to. And that's it, isn't it? Colonial imagination. That's what's so ruinous and constantly rotting. The last zombie in a world overtaken by flowers, still hungry for something to colonize, something to harm and infect and spread to, a decrepit, drooling husk of itself, a caricature of a caricature drawn from drunk memory, drunk off pig's blood, riding horses on the beaches of Tulum, sweating into our sacred waters, unbathed and in agony from the sun. The idea hangs on, glamorized in minds of neo-colonizers who claim nationhood and supremacy. The zombie of colonization speaks through them, thinking itself still alive, thinking it's still a way of life, to acquiesce and demonize and destroy. I have a dream in which the flowers and vines overtake the zombie of the colonies. I have a dream in which we plant strangler figs in the doors of every oppressor. I have a dream where we don't just win. That notion exists within the imagination of the colonizer, within the body of the zombie colonies that continue to repeat the same droning drivel, hungry for subjugate bodies to press the dark fossil of their hearts upon. I would love for you to become my gasoline, Diego. I would love to put every colony in the rearview mirror. I would love to get away from everything, and yet I'm right here, constantly fighting with this invisible zombie, constantly breaking the 4th, 5th, 6th walls of colonization, constantly checking myself and my beliefs, the ways in which I carry myself in this world, constantly trekking the vast deference of my heart, which is also your heart, Diego. I too am zombie. I only want to plant flowers. I don't want to spread virus. I inherited. I want to understand it. I want to not just eliminate but learn from it. I want to plant flowers, Diego. I want to plant a garden of roses like my grandfather Sheesh before me. I want to build a beautiful line of bricks as my grandfather Jose once laid. I want to feel the sun on my skin. I want to feel the air that lies beyond colonization, and I can almost taste it, Diego. Can you taste it too? There is water there, maybe a cenote. Hey. So I'm gonna be real with you. I have no concept of time, but it feels like I should wrap it up. So I want to do something special together, because this is SWP, and this is maybe my favorite poem to do with people. And if this poem leaves you feeling a way, I urge you to look inward, beloved. Okay? This will be participatory. So, in organizing, in activism, in gathering, we don't always have a beautiful mic, a team of superheroes at the back of pack to make sure that we are all heard. Are y'all familiar with the people's mic? Yeah? Can we do a quick mic check? That's right. Okay, so for those of you unfamiliar, when I say mic check, I want to hear it back. Mic check. Mic check. Absolutely. Okay, so welcome to organizing. Love it. Let's dismantle the fascist state. Let's save the world with poetry. Let's do the damn thing. So, for this mic check, I would love for y'all to read this poem with me together. Y'all ready? Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, what the fuck was that? Are y'all ready? Yes. Okay, mic check. Mic check. The last billionaire. The last billionaire.
one could hear that last breath over the sound of everyone eating. Fuck Elon Musk.
All right, and so that is not a new poem, by the way. I've been doing that one for years, but I did promise a new poem. So about a year ago, I started feeling like my poet life was leaving me, and I got so scared. I gripped for it for dear life, and I was like, how the fuck do you stay a poet? What's the most poet-ass thing I could say? Hark. I shit you not. I wrote hark in a notebook, and then I just started writing these hark poems. So I would love it if y'all would do a hark poem with me. And this is a new poem, okay? All right, new shit. Okay, mic check. Hark! I am full of love. It's what makes me dangerous. Thank you.
Okay. And now Brian will introduce Valerie.
Hey. So I'm by far the least emotional person in most rooms I've been in Naropa. So, like Valerie did yesterday, I would like to not metaphorize anything I'm saying today. So, Valerie Shang has had the most impact of any person on my life. That's really not an exaggeration, because the person I was before I met her lacks so many of the things that I like about myself now. And I'm trying to pinpoint what that is, and I think I have it. It's Valerie's control, decisiveness, and willingness to go between light and dark. For everyone present at the panel on yesterday, you got to witness one end, so I'd like to enlighten you on the other end. The first writing piece we ever did together was to come up with a third space for our cities that brought it closer to utopia. The last project we did, a year and a half later, was to call a loved one, and as a group, we sang them a song of our choosing. And in between, we made rituals to ancestors in organic matter. We touched, we played, and danced, and clowned. And have you noticed the way she looks around? Her eyes are like radars. There's no hiding anything from her eyes. Her biggest talent is seeing. That is what is most prominent in her work. When you read Valerie's writing, you encounter a voice that knows everything. But it can never tell you straight up, here is the secret of the world. No, the secret behind that voice is a woman who has been through the extremes of good and evil, mania and heaviness, excess and lack. That is what it is to be a poet, to live a life receptive to everything, to feel everything, to be the simultaneous woman, always here and always in the past, in the future, in utopia, in dystopia. Valerie shatters timelines with her writing, performance, and even just in her presence. Being around her is like being with her all places at once. That's what I thought of that's what I thought of on the panel yesterday when she said, when we attune ourselves to the suffering of the world, poetry is divine. I thought about her eyes, her timelines, her radar. I thought that if I'm happy with anything I've made in the past 2 years, it's because Valerie touched me, taught me how to access light and dark, how to let the pain of the world rot me enough to make the soil fertile. That I am actually such an emotional person. I am so honored to introduce this author of many books, including the most recent, The Knave from Ugly Duckling Press, and The Pedestrian, which is upcoming from Nightboat next year. Yeah. Valerie Shang, the Valerie Shang, who after a dark winter now enters a light again, who has made it clear that everything in her practice has changed, but after 2 days around her, she is still there, here, yesterday and tomorrow, better and worse. Please welcome Valerie Shang.
When the first astronauts returned from space, they killed themselves. The totality of that kind of vision comparable only to my mother's eyes. When I asked her to tell me things she never told me, she said she told me everything. I couldn't fathom that emptiness, floating dice through outer space as tenets. I want to play a game where the rules require the defeated to sing a song that goes nowhere. Semen floating through outer space as time retarded then. I am still reckoning with the horror of the tranquility without any melody. I who no longer speak to anyone else, even now, as I circle the horror I am, leaving crumbs, not so I'll return to the center, but so you'll remember the ones I've spent my days remembering. I wanted you to defile your mother, to show me, for us to go on. I needed you to make a sacrifice on the level that I had suffered. I have held something smaller than a human life in my hands. Children play a game like Made You Look. The proof of gullibility is a form of having been conquered. We chose this path hoping to encounter hieroglyphs, but instead found animal bones. We were living finally as artists when we realized we were walking the predator's footsteps. Nothing can hide me now that my coat is inside out. Last night I watched myself sleeping up close. I was inside my own head and then pressing my face up against the window, unsure then whether I had slept. I beheld you. I held you. I held you. Something that cannot grow, cannot be unsent, but what haunts us can grow. I have to travel across the Atlantic. I have to in order to meet the double. The growth of such entrapment happens only as it entwines with our mind. Growing up, I was a foreign object to my neighbors. When there is nothing more native than childhood, that sense of otherworldliness has always been familiar to me, though like a worm, it is so easily lost. When I stopped growing, I asked my mother why, and she never told me to go away. I went to visit the future for a few hours. When I came back, belly down on the bed, I accepted no visitors myself. A silver capsule in the algae, one side of an X folded over the other side, but not to camouflage, because asymmetry is a duplication spelt out like a weak promise, a weak promise as the truest sense, a stone house sheltering a poet whose life acts as a promise. A child says the word poet for the first time. I look at you. You say, I'm spilling. No, my love, you're being drained. A girl was raped here between one war and another a few dozen years ago. An echo is, even with ever after. When I see trash in the countryside, I think of where and hope you don't see too. I hope to convince you that such colors exist in nature, but remembering you're colorblind, I don't want to hurry through her, but we are connecting deeply. A private human is an animal. You cannot go directly from countryside to countryside. You must go first through a more crowded economy. Since I have confirmed this connection is no waste of time, I know if I reach the end, I can always start over, and there we will meet for the first time. When the dead child says, Mama, it's not because they haven't learned eternity yet, but being sided with it, Mama holds the dead child's hands so they won't be taken away. Tonight, the skies are jealous of my dead child, whose spirit has made a mother a child again. I am lonely with the world. I am lonely with the world. A seed marking my brow. There are verdant valleys that became greener after the blood of young boys soaked through them, red as Mao's poems, red as Mao's eighth wife's teeth. Inside me is that same valley. I made your assassin fall in love with me because this graveyard inside me, historic, made me look at jealousy like a toy. And having been crushed, I know what it means to be happy for my friend. When everything is put away, everything that doesn't belong on the altar, for the altar to be a place, for the room to become the altar, life is alone. Maybe we could just talk, she said. She fed expensive nuts to the indigenous bird. When she asked him if they could just talk, she was suggesting, she was throwing something out. Then the fact that she can't find a pile from the piles of hard days will be just another illusion. The first room in prison where the jewelry's all put into a bowl. We think the angels long for our mutilation, like an animal inside a church, bringing its hands to cover its eyes. Someone else in front of you has gone off to the side, bringing her hands to cover her eyes. Loneliness does not live at the center of us. It forces us to stand to the side, and it is its force. As days removed from calendars, as springs removed from a prisoner's bed, I walk between the towers, engraved with names. Because we still worship strength, the women who live together in a separate colony only see the outside world, so-called. When tourists come to encounter the structure, they live and play in a crack in the lip of a teacup, shares lineage with the wrinkle on her face. I'm on alert at night, unsure if I have sensation when my bladder was pressed down like a ball in the ocean. The Virgin Mary held a ball in her hands. We watched a ball fall for New Year's. In my childhood, we played tetherball after my father poured cement in the grass. He never said, "This is for you." My friend bought flowers each month for a year after winning the lottery to see how it would change her. I cannot look her way today because she wants more than to scream to herald my beauty. I will never ask for those books to be returned to me. I lent them away before I even opened them, and curious as I am to know what's in them, I'll never ask. I would rather lose my song than have lost you. There's a piece of bread floating through outer space, insolvent. I can't say I crave it. When you hit me, the circle I was drawing turned into a spiral. Experiencing the loss of one's child is not all dissimilar from being famous in a small seaside town off the Atlantic coast. The only difference is the violence of being confronted at an ice cream parlor with your family and the violence of offering your table up to a local family who thank you exactly the amount you feel such an act warrants. Is the difference, of course, in money. And the fine illusion of any difference lies, of course, in the fact that the bereaved is famous throughout the galaxies, not merely amongst humans. The bereaved are always visiting the sites of ruins where the dreams of children frequent when they are described to their parents in the morning who are cleaning their sheets, which have been canvases of bedwetting. The child says, I don't know where I was. though they do always know. The grasses shake in the wind because they are visitors. There is no knowing. Every movement is an improvisation. Activists are eager for a lead. Now that I have cleaned this home 4 times, I will say, I lived here. To leave one home behind for another, that's when a stillness comes to us, that if they could, the grasses would pity us. We cannot outrun this ending, but planes overhead of us will leave with or without us. So perhaps an ending unedited, emergent is the only appropriate one there is. My left hand has conspiracies of the sleep and the wind. They begin in the lining of his stomach. A sacred being learns that they are sacred in learning that they are owned. When everyone was gone, the fool's cheek was the color of the inside of a guava, and my hand touched my hand. Everybody said I'd see them again, but my whole life, every time I turned my back and walked away from somebody, I never saw them again. Everyone had to pretend they didn't see what they saw, because when the child who comes into the world with some part of them missing ran through the path we had emptied, we might have all stopped there. But because the child who comes into the world with some part of them missing had no shadow, we continued to hope. For as long as I could remember, the fog's favorite child was the fool. My left hand touched my right hand, and I started to wonder how long it had been since I knocked on someone's door asking whether they had found whatever it was I was missing. When I had first started walking to the well by myself, I didn't know that even though sometimes it felt like I could not wait to see what was on the other side of the wall, and in order to do so, I had to go as far as I possibly could away from the alley, that even though the alley felt like it wasn't going anywhere, that didn't mean it would always be there waiting. When we sent a child who comes into the world with some part of them missing up to the mountain, it was said that they were going to a place that was eternal, and because of that, we were supposed to sleep better. But I know that the neighbor's wife was only crying because she knew that even if that was true, that nothing eternal was anything to write home about. When my mother would tell me to carry that tray of our best fruit and set it outside of their gate, she would tell me now to take a piece of guava and cut it into eighths. By her bedside, my mother would feed the neighbor's wife piece after piece, and I know now that my mother was just trying to help her find a bit of calm inside her disease. She was hoping that when we left her room, she would keep feeding herself the fruit and she'd still have a bit of calm. Sometimes things were so slow in the alley, it was hard to see how it was getting old. It was hard to believe that the alley could do that. When the home where we sent the children who come into the world with some part of them missing was kept from ever not being what it was, which was pure. I never thought that when I was walking to the well that I was ever moving on from the alley, even if it felt like sometimes I was escaping. And I never thought that when something grows old, it didn't actually ever move further away from the things we kill. When the neighbor's wife was saying things to her dead child, she was really saying things to herself. And when the neighbor's wife was saying things to our neighbor, she was really saying things to her dead child. When I became the fog's favorite child, I did so mostly unwillingly. When they told me the fog's favorite child could keep whatever they came here with, I knew that wasn't ever true, but it wasn't their fault either for saying this. No one was lying by saying this because they could only see one half of it. But the fog's favorite child saw the whole thing from afar. That was the crime and the gift. Sometimes at night when I told the fool I was afraid, I was forgetting what the weight felt like. He said he would never forget what that felt like. And I wondered if I was talking to someone who was already dead. When they said I was free to go, I realized I had nothing to go back to. They say no one asks to be born, but sometimes it felt like I didn't ask to be free either. And yet there I was, in need of nothing anymore. If you'd held me, you'd know there was nothing inside of me anymore either, that I really could go anywhere. When we were younger, the cursing girls used to talk about what the gold digger's sister had dug up from the dirt accidentally when she was only digging that dirt in order to bury something. Sometimes when you go off trying to hide something, you end up finding something else you never even knew you would have to wish for. When I wasn't supposed to be doing anything except staying put, the gold digger's sister let me hold something that at the time I thought meant the world to her, something that was worth more, I thought she thought, than even she was worth, which everyone in the alley thought was nothing, which meant that something was worth a little more than nothing. I wasn't supposed to be playing with things like that, things that my mother didn't even have. But when the gold digger's sister gave me something, I held it, and I couldn't say no, because it was made of stone and it was so clearly precious that it was worth a little more than nothing. I thought in holding it that there was nothing more important until she opened up the stone bottle to show me how attached to the bottle cap was a miniature gold-carved hand. And then she dabbed the water held in the miniature gold-carved hand behind my ears and said, "Now, I better be careful." I held something once. I held something once I wasn't supposed to hold. So now I would hold something I was supposed to hold. When I stopped thinking anything could help me, that's when it stood beside me. Time dressed up like it could have been an old friend of mine, like someone who spent their whole life with dirt underneath their nails, and we sat on the ground together like we were sitting bored on a bed. For the first time in what felt like a long time, I smelled things again, and I remembered where I was amongst things that could only be from where I was. Time had me lie down and then brought these things towards me, and time rubbed them on the crown of my skull and then rubbed them on the back of my tailbone with these things that lent us their fragrance. Time beat me gently. Time beat all of me from my arms to my feet, and then time covered me the way my mother used to cover a dish of food to keep it warm while she was finishing cooking the rest of the meal. Time covered me in a way that was equally careless and careful, just like my mother did to those dishes. I asked time for nothing. I followed time's directions equally carelessly and carefully. All I had to do was play dead, that I could even skip the begging. All I had to do was stay with time. And when time told me I could ask the dead to come towards me, time didn't say I needed to ask them for help. Even playing dead was nothing as I let time have its way with me. And I wasn't waiting for it to be over, and I wasn't dreading for when it would be over either. When she was with me, there was no ending. She was with me. I asked the dead to come towards me, but I didn't ask them for help. I just asked them, the dead, to come and be with me for a bit. Sometimes you lift a rock off a flower and it's the rock you keep. Time, when it came towards me, was already starting to sense the change in me. It found me in one moment only because both of us were lucky. Seeing me in a moment when I was open to anything. Seeing me in a moment when I was asking nothing from no one. Time knew I could let go of the rock at any moment, and that would be enough for me to come off the ground. When time had its way with me, I grabbed onto the flowers which loosened the earth between them, but did not come apart from what was beneath them, so that only the earth that held them seemed to come away as though in one piece only for a moment. Maybe if I weren't so sleepy, I would have fought back, or there was nothing more desperate than grabbing onto those flowers than what I did before playing dead. We didn't put any of those flowers into the ground because nothing we put in the ground was ever kept in the ground. We had no reason to stay anywhere, though we would. We would stay somewhere for what felt like eternity. By playing dead, it was only for me that time showed the 2 points on its back. It was only for me, by playing dead, that time showed how sick it was too. In those moments, my playing dead was my doing what I had seen a girl do once is all. In seeing how sick she was, time had nothing to hide, so it was only for her that time would be true. Like a flower underwater as it saves a child from being washed away, like a flower above the earth as it saves a girl from being swept away. Something that was there from the very beginning held on or stayed in place. When the girl asked the flower what it was thinking, she was asking if it was still worth hoping. Each day for 3 weeks, the girl would ask this of the flower, and in her asking, time would never even begin. Only after she gave up did time start erasing her. After that, everything she touched became a part of her. And when she wanted something to fall, all she had to do was make herself fall. When she wanted a rock to fall off an edge, she simply made herself fall to the ground. When she wanted a girl to fall because that girl was hurting a boy, she made herself fall twice as hard and made sure to hit her head. Once she saw a girl sitting on a rock on the edge of the earth, and she kept on walking faster and faster until she was almost a child running. Sometimes she thought of herself as a piece of rock as well, a rock that fell and never stopped falling. It was in thinking this that she realized that things that move in circles never stop falling either. When a girl tilted her head, it was because she was making a rock fall, and when a rock fell, it only fell alongside her falling. Her mistake then was to believe that every time she fell, she would be brought closer, but nothing, no one ever is. And because some of us wished to flee from all this falling and tried to do so by letting ourselves be flung, that was how our falling just became time itself. When I was young, I didn't think my mother was scared of anything except for one thing. And that she was so scared of, that one thing she was scared of so much, it was something none of us were ever allowed to even put into the air, because things she thought you put into the air became like every day when they should be saved. In the days when I was following around the girl with hair down to the ground, sometimes I'd look at my mother like she was the one who had done something wrong. And in the days when another rainy season followed another rainy season, I'd think about my mother, how even she could not help me if she had been around. When I was young and people used to look at me like they didn't know what was wrong with me, my impatience made me do all kinds of crazy things. I'd have all kinds of accidents because of my impatience. But in the days when another rainy season followed another rainy season, and I stopped needing to make up anything, an accident was like a long-lost friend. My mother wasn't ever afraid of what I could do, even when I was. I was afraid of my own heart beating. And when I told my mother I could hear it, she said, I can hear it too. They used to say that all this pain made a person strong, but all I ever found after I was completely alone was someone so soft that something as small as hearing a leak in a good man's house threatened to make fall apart. When I was very young, I had known that I was alone, but I never second-guessed when the dead left signs for me that they were leaving those signs just for me because I was alone. But after I died, all I could do was second-guess. Even though the one thing they all warned us not to do was second guess. The ones who warned us hadn't ever died themselves yet, so how were they to know that second guessing was the only way for the dead to leave signs to the living? After I died, I turned myself around and said, "Look, Mama, there are two of me now." Because I was the dead one, it was up to me to leave signs for the living. And because I was the living one too, it was up to me to keep second guessing. When the night was telling them that everyone was alive, that everyone who was actually alive was dead except the youngest. The youngest were wild animals. And once they grew up, they died as well. I knew that the dead was only leaving something behind for the living. And this was the only time I didn't second guess something. Because I was dead, I knew that the dead don't wish to be alive. The happiest ones don't wish to be alive. Because I was dead, I knew that what we think of as happiness isn't real happiness, that the people who appear to not be suffering only appear so because they know suffering, that even the dead play dead, and it is those who appear to not be suffering who house suffering first. Life and death appear to me in the same instant. As soon as life touched my cheek, death touched my other. There is no life or death. There is only inside and outside. And once you have been outside, even when you are inside again, the wind never leaves your cheek. Years later, sometimes I would find myself acting clumsy inside a house or something, and then I'd keel over second guessing whether what happened to me really happened. None of it was enough, none of it, and at the same time, all of it was too much, too much. When I was ready to die, it was because I had become a child again. All I ever found after I died was that I was still alive, because no one except time lives for itself. I started to see that the longer I walked with time, that there was almost nothing I could not love. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. It's a rare thing to feel undone by a class. to walk in one way and walk out altered. But that's what happened today in Lydia Lunch's workshop. She showed us her documentary, Artist, Depression, Anxiety, and Rage. And I don't say this lightly, it eviscerated us. Some tough people were shaken. It was a bloodletting, a collective exhale of rage and pain and honesty. I still feel nauseous, stripped raw by the artists, writers, and musicians we watch speak the unspeakable. Lydia does this. She brings you to your most vulnerable edge and doesn't abandon you there. As a student in her class, I feel seen, listened to, and unafraid. She sets the tone not just with her work, but with her presence, her example, and her truth. She exploded out of 1970s New York as a teenage founder of Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, a defining figure in the no-wave movement, a furious, anti-commercial, anti-everything rupture in sound and art, punker than punk. And she never stopped rupturing. Through the 80s and 90s, she expanded into writing, spoken word, performance film, collaborating with Nick Cave, Sonic Youth, and My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, where her voice haunts the track A Martini Built for Two like a noir prayer whispered through a cracked speaker. Her books, Paradoxia, Will Work for Drugs, So Real It Hurts, Don't Flinch. They take on sexual violence, generational trauma, survival, and rage without apology or anesthetic. Her themes are carved into the body, not theorized, but felt, named, and exercised. When Lydia went looking for influences, she didn't find many women who matched the tone she needed. The models handed to women were brilliant, but often too polite, too pretty, too soft. She turned instead to the men who weren't afraid to go too far, Henry Miller, Desaad, Burroughs, only the Grove Press versions. Not because she agreed with them, but because she needed that aggression, that provocation to shape her voice, and she did. And she saw herself reflected in performance art, especially Karen Finley, whose screaming, chocolate-covered body work, Lydia says, still hasn't been equaled, and maybe can't be, because rage that honest doesn't duplicate easily. Lydia doesn't just talk about power, she flips it. She told us this story. She was opening for the Rollins Band when a man in the crowd yelled, "Show us your tits." Lydia didn't flinch, she showed them on her terms and then yelled, "Now show me your dick." Before the man could respond, the Rollins Band forcibly pantsed him, and Lydia lit him up with a mag light, not to shame, but to magnify the moment, to expose what we usually pretend not to see. That wasn't just a retaliation, it was a reversal, a public disruption that turned power inside out and forced the crowd to reconsider what had just happened. Today, she continues that disruption through her podcast, The Lydian Spin, where she interviews artists, activists, and cultural heretics, keeping the flame of dissent alive and stoked. As she said in the documentary, you've got to fight against the spiritually bereft in their soul, and she does with her voice, her body, her archive, her scream. And it's not just hers. Lydia said in the film, "I will be the mouth that will be your scream, and you cannot articulate." Please join me in welcoming the legendary, the unfiltered.
Turn the mic on and do not welcome me. By the way, I wish that meant something to me, but your Pavlovian response does not. I want to thank you, Anne, for paving the way for confronters like me and my conspiracy cow of women who confront the cockocracy. Now, please do not interrupt, because I really don't need your applause. I know I'm impregnating you, let's face fact. What I want is more of everything. What I want is a secret place, a sacred space, a magical, non-tragic existence where words and music flow like the blood of a matador gored by the most beautiful bull that the world has never taken the opportunity to witness. What I want is pure, uninterrupted, hedonistic bliss before the final kiss, and I'm surprised that hasn't already come, by the way, anyway. But what I want, really, is for you to be more like me. Yeah, baby. Free. free from all the agony and anxiety, the depression and repression, the fear and self-loathing. Attributes I have never felt, so you can consider me a fembot. That's the least of what I am. What I want is for you to be like me, laughing like a lunatic, both middle fingers raised in the fucking face of those who would deny you the power to be what you are, which should be more like me. Just saying. Don't even interrupt me. You know, it gets ugly. Nobody said it was going to be pretty. And by the way, don't let the tits fool you. They are my balls. They have ascended. Would you keep it out? Or take it out? I need a mag light to find it. We inhabit a vast potential utopia, which is being destroyed by its abusers. For thousands of years now, madmen, maniacs, and would-be messiahs have been pillaging, pilfering, and plundering the entire planet. Man, as pariah, piranha, a parasite, an all-consuming ravenous beast who devours every other creature, wreaking havoc upon a female planet who bears the scars of his insatiable hunger, her body pitted by deep wounds gouged into her flesh as he leeches from her natural elements which power his infernal machines. Machines which spew forth black bile, poisoning the atmosphere as man gluts on the earth's sacred fluids and precious minerals until nature, Mother Nature, herself stages a hostile insurrection against man's gluttony and greed. And the way that I see it, Mother Nature is getting pretty fucking pissed off. She's sick of being gang raped by the cuckocracy, shat on by dictators, and torn to shreds by tyrants. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, tsunamis, monsoons, droughts, famines, floods, forest fires, mudslides, hurricanes, heat waves. Nature herself is becoming more violent against the men who have been causing her violence. But if we want to go back in time, like in the beginning, before they had invented God, and by the way, God was the first cop, the first cock. In the beginning, excuse me, I digress, as I always do. In the beginning, before they had invented God, there was simply woman. Now, some say that the devil is a woman, if only. If there's a devil, no doubt she's a woman, maybe a monster, maybe my double. But in the beginning, there was simply woman. And some of us can remember our sacred origins when we as women lived in covens. We were all pagans, all of us hedonists. We'd have wild bacchanalias. We'd dance naked under the moonlight. We'd have orgies, women only, and wild blood rituals. In the beginning, there was simply woman. Women perfected poetry, language, song, and dance. The night has always belonged to women. They've always feared us, feared our power, feared our sex voodoo. And I know some of you remember the prayers and incantations, the secret signs and sacred symbols. They stole our religion, perverted our Christianity, and so many other religions are just a perversion. But in the beginning, before they had invented God, there was simply woman. I know you want to applaud, but don't do it. Don't interrupt me. I don't care. Welcome to my church. Yeah. The Church of the Unholy Redeemer, where the only commandment is rebellion from false virtue. Rebellion from false virtue. And pleasure is the ultimate rebellion. It's the only true rebellion. And I insist upon pleasure. Pleasure at the mouth of the abyss. Pleasure at the brink of the apocalypse. And it is apocalypse now. I am an apocalyptician. I'm kind of in heaven right now, because it's the same as it always was. pleasure at the brink of disaster. Now, in times of war, it's not my war, although the war is never over. It's not your war. But we, especially as women and others, we need to demand our pleasure. We need to insist upon pleasure because it's the first thing they fucking steal from us. And we might not have much time left. I'm surprised we're all still here now, especially myself. We might not have much time left. Avian bird flu, dirty bombs, radiation, nuclear warheads, biochemical retribution as revenge for spiritual bankruptcy. We might not have much time, but with whatever time is left, and whatever passion and lucidity I can bring to bear, I always wanted life to be naked. I always wanted ecstasy. And I finally found it. Oh, yeah. I found it. And I'm not talking just the drug, but that did help. Because I must find ecstasy in this insanity. I must find freedom from this slavery. I must find the truth in their lies. Beauty despite their homicidal, genocidal nature. I must find peace in the war horse evil orgy of death and negation. I must find love amongst the ruins. Pleasure. Because I'm an apocalyptician at the brink of the apocalypse. And it's the same as it ever fucking was. We just have more access to the assholes who are bringing us forward now. I know. I realize a woman has never started a world war, but she never fucking ended one either. So I wrote this letter. Dear Ivanka, what the fuck is wrong with you, darling? How do you stand yourself? You present such a picture-perfect, surgically enhanced or not visage, but aren't you squirming just a little bit under this incredibly fraudulent facade? I mean, I know. I do know. A lot of us grew up with fathers that were predators, rapists, child molesters, liars of the lowest order, but very few of us had to withstand a dad that publicly announced they'd like to fuck us or that it was okay to call us a piece of ass on the Howard Stern show. I mean, the same asswipe that said, when you're a star, they let you do anything. That is, except for the 26 women since the 1970s who have accused that crusty fuck your father of groping without consent, looking up women's skirts, walking in on naked teenage pageant contestants, raping a woman in Bloomingdale's dressing room, that can't be easy, or calling Jeffrey Epstein a terrific guy. And that scuzzy fuck did a lot more than just grab him. Can you imagine if he tried to grab me by the fucking pussy? He'd have a throat punch in no time. I'd love to fucking see him try. Dear Ivanka, what the fuck is wrong with you, darling? But I guess having $20 million of your dead mother's money means, of course, it really wouldn't matter to you that she's buried at the Bedminster golf course where your dad, that fat-ass pathological liar and serial sex offender, can put his pud over her head and it can't come soon enough. He dies of a Big Mac attack as he forever gluts on junk food, which appears to have brought on the onslaught of early onset dementia. But like stepmother, like stepdaughter, like Stepford daughter, I'm just asking, how many hand jobs under the table, and trust me, I know all about this, did you have to give to be awarded 16 trademarks in China, including, I shit you not, one for a fucking voting booth? Are you kidding me? Really? In that lecherous dud you call a dad's first term in office? And like dead mother, like daughter, you married into an infamous criminal family cabal, the Kushners. Well, no biggie. Your fabulous father-in-law was only convicted of 18 criminal charges, serving a mere 2 years in the federal penitentiary before being pardoned by Daddy Dearest diaper-wearing Donnie, who himself, let's face it, has 34 felony convictions on record, including paying hush money to a porn star. I have to wonder, did that get him off your tits for a minute or two? I was a con, still a cunt, who continues double dipping on uncountable dirty deeds. I mean, this is the very same stable genius who fraudulently filed for bankruptcy 6 times. Couldn't even, can you imagine not keeping a casino from failing? And has now turned his unbelievably moronic lack of business acumen to bitcoins while bankrupting the entire planet by terrafaction. Oh, thanks, kid. Yeah. Now, all right, I too might pull a disappearing act if I had to admit how arrogant, idiotic, cruel, and stupid my entire fucked up family is. Littered with shills, swindlers, short-shift grifters who run a criminal enterprise that sells shitty made-in-China tchotchkes to MAGA idiots while brokering kleptocurrency of bad land deals while foreign dictators who don't give a shit if the whole world is turned into a gulag while we all suffer under the next Great Depression. Ivanka, what the fuck is wrong with you, darling? Are you so freaking brain dead that you've been turned into a Stepford daughter? Are you so out of touch with anything other than your own alternative reality that you can't see the forest are burning all the trees? Are you so criminally rich that you're dreaming of your own underground bunker, no doubt financed by that $2 billion your husband screwed the Saudis out of, where you can wait out the apocalypse? Can I join you there, honey bunny? While the world burns, the oceans rise, the poor starve, women, children, and innocent male civilians are massacred, immigrants are exiled, which, by the way, your frickin' mother and stepmother and the best buddy were all immigrants. Just saying. As the wars continue and you sit in your $24 million Miami mansion laughing as the rest of us die a little bit more every fucking day because it is apocalypse now and you don't have the freaking guts to do what is right and commit that one honorable act of patricide. What the fuck is wrong with you? And by the way, I found this out today, and I am kind of pissed off. I want to get the taste of that quad out of my mouth. Today, her and her hubby purchased for $1.4 billion an island off the coast of Albania. Now, for that money, I'm choking on the ghost I wish she becomes. For $1.4 billion, she could have fed 4.8 million children for a year. But she don't have to worry about feeding her kids. Bitch. The fuck is wrong with you? What? Excuse me, I like that word. She don't deserve it. I guess all the bleach just leaked into her brain and she's got nothing left. There are, and I think is underestimate right now, 122 million people forcibly disposed from their land, refugees, mostly women and children. So this piece is for them. This is for the ghost. This is for the ghost they soon will become. This is for the ghost. This is for the dead and dying. This is for the war-torn and battle-fatigued. This is for the widows and orphans of warriors. This is for the warriors. This is for the warriors, whether I believed in what they were fighting for or not, who were willing to die fighting for freedom. Because they believed it was better to die fighting for freedom than to live a life enslaved by lies, which is what we live every fucking day. And this is for those who believe. You better believe. You better believe in ghosts. Because soon enough, you too will become a ghost. Yeah. It's for the ghost of Fallujah, Anbar Province, Abu Ghraib, Bakuba, Guantanamo, Gaza, Beirut, Baghdad, Kabul, Kandahar, Jalalabad, Islamabad, Kathmandu, Mogadishu, Darfur, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, Yemen, Lebanon, Kiev, all of Ukraine, all of Russia, all of Gaza, all of Iran. There are 94 countries involved in fucking conflict right now. More than even in World War II. Yeah. The war is never over. It's not my war. It's not your war. This is for the freedom fighters. This is for the insurgents. This is for the rebels and rabble rousers. This is for every individual who fights against tyranny and oppression. It's for the martyrs. It's for the martyrs. This is for Mohammed Mossadegh, Salvador Allende, Oscar Romero, Teo Van Gogh, Federico Garcia Lorca, Pasolini, Bruno Schultz, Madeline Murillo Herring. If you don't know who she is, look her up. She got rid of prayer, which is now coming back in school, and was found beheaded in the desert. Great interview, actually, in Playboy magazine, late 60s, just saying. Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, etc. This is for the wounded and traumatized. This is for the survivors. This is for those like I feel I am suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome every day of my goddamn life. This is for those who choose to survive and strive to overcome the roadblocks and landmines, the pitfalls and setbacks, the negativity of a world which forces you to fight tooth and nail, forces you into battle mode on a daily basis so you can maintain a tenuous grip on your own sanity, which I'm not sure I can maintain. After a lifetime of the enemy's torture, humiliation, brainwashing, and fucking abuse. Holding it all together. Yeah. So many men, such little ammunition. This is not against all men. It's against men in positions of power that continue to feed on greed, bullshit, and the need for a fragile ego to prove how powerful they are. This is for the ghost of Brooklyn, the Bronx, Detroit, Watts, Inglewood, Oakland, St. Louis, New Orleans, Memphis, Trenton, Youngstown, Cleveland, Rochester, Camden, Baltimore, Newark, Little Rock, Tulsa, Baton Rouge. This for the ghost that feel they were born invisible in life, born into a war zone of poverty or desperation and neglect, into a country which glamorizes violence, worships serial killers, threatens by massacre, and then arrogantly brags about gangbanging the whole fucking planet. It's for the lovers. It's for the lovers of forgetfulness who turn a blind eye to all those who've been murdered, fighting for all of our fucking battles. And I would like to forget. Oh, I would love to forget. It's not my war. It's not your war. But most of all, this is for my ghost. Because my ghost will be as loud in death as it's been in life. Because I fucking said it already. It's the same as it ever was. Thank you.
One more salute to Swanee, to Angel, to Valerie, to Lydia. Thanks to dearest Nishat and Charlie for the Ikebana this week. Thanks to our friends in the PAC crew. As we like to close, the rest of the evening is yours.